No. As a matter of fact, I would guess that companies like Apple probably have some very well remunerated corporate attorneys who have viewed this. But even before we get into the legalisms, we have to remember it's moved beyond the legalisms. It's about the image of our state. And when this bill was signed, right over here in this very office, standing behind the governor was a mishmash of every anti-marriage equality lobbyist that exists. And if you read what they say about the bill, it clearly demonstrates that there is an intent to discriminate. Now, whether that was understood by the legislative leaders, I'll leave that up to them to explain. But those pushing for it seemed to understand what it meant.
And let me also add this. 6 times yesterday, the governor was asked, does this bill allow discrimination? And he didn't answer that. Even today, in the press availability, when the question was asked, well, will this allow somebody to discriminate against somebody on the basis of sexual orientation? The answer is, we'll have to let the courts decide. So they don't know. So how in the world can they say that there's some misconception about this bill when they can't say clearly it doesn't discriminate, and they're afraid to say that? Yes, ma'am. You know, we could take a look at whatever language is available, but one thing you have to make sure, the only way that these RFRA bills really do work is if you also have a strong Civil Rights Act, a state Civil Rights Act that says we do not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, among other things. And so, you know, who knows? We'll take a look at what the specific provisions are that are going to be advanced. We didn't hear that just a few minutes ago, by the way. And then we'll go from there. But I think you have to clearly and boldly say and lead and say, Indiana does not discriminate. We're not about discrimination. We are a friendly, welcoming state. This bill has tried to undermine that, and we've got to take bold action to counter that.
Tim, I want to mention something as a follow-up to that. Let's not forget that in both houses, Democrats offered language that might have granted some clarifications in advance. And this was before this whole thing blew up into a national embarrassment. We said, look, if it's not about discrimination, prove it by adopting this amendment or adopting that amendment. Make it clear it's not about discrimination. Had they done that, and had they not just been slapped aside just out of partisan instincts, we wouldn't have been at this spot right now.
I have the language to do that. We've already asked for a draft of that. I wouldn't think so. We have 4 weeks to do what's right. We ought to find the time to solve this problem and to make it right. Many other states have already adopted into their state civil rights acts, so we can look to them for guidance on this thing. There's certainly a way to solve this, solve that problem in terms of the timing.
And Brandon, let's not forget, this wasn't just any initiative. This was Senate Bill 101, and for the Indiana media, you know what that means. That means that it was a priority. It was the first bill introduced in the Senate. And now this is what this session has become about. So we got 4 weeks left. Let's let the hearings roll.
Let's go over here. I'll let you handle it to Chicago.
You know what? I want to answer that with a bit of an anecdote. Because, as you know, I'm a Northwest Indiana person. In terms of the district I represent, Chicago media market, this issue was at the top of the Chicago television news every evening over the weekend. And just yesterday morning, I had one of my constituents come up to me and say, Scott, thank you for the positions you've taken. This has to change. I just had a huge reservation canceled because the customer said to me, I will not spend a dime in Indiana again. These have real implications for real people in a business sense. And And it doesn't surprise me that Mayor Emanuel, who's got a bit of a re-election campaign going on himself right now, wouldn't make a pitch for that. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be surprising.
Does somebody back there have another question? Okay, sir. Well, you get that question, but you have to take in context when these bills, a lot of them were originally signed into law. It was a number of years ago before you had such the advancement in terms of equality, marriage equality, and these other issues. But, we don't want to take that chance. I mean, I just heard the President Pro Tem make some comment about, well, we'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out in court. And it certainly will play out in court. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because when they clearly cannot answer the question of will this allow for someone to discriminate against a person, it's going to raise that possibility. You have to assume that it's going to occur, and when it occurs, we need to know that. Well, there's a way to do that, and it's to do what we're proposing here. I don't know why we would want to risk the idea that we'll have to spend years in litigation over the issue of whether or not this type of a bill will allow for discrimination. Sir? Well, that's ridiculous. If the bill, we already have years and years of precedent on a national basis, and also I believe we have a state amendment which guarantees freedom of religion in the state of Indiana and across this country. We're strong supporters of freedom of religion. If anything, I sometimes think that the government gets too involved in the issue of religion, and I think that the purpose of the First Amendment was to protect everyone's right to their beliefs, and you don't have to just be, going along with the mainstream religion that prevails within a community, for example. So that's totally wrong whatsoever. The problem with this act is when they cannot answer that question. Could this bill be used to discriminate against somebody on the basis of sexual orientation? That's when you have a real problem, and that's our concern.
And that question also needs to be answered with another question. Why? Why was this needed? We've served here a while. You've served here a while here, haven't you, Senator Lannon? Well, there was no barnstorm of folks complaining that their religious liberties were being impacted. It was a made-up issue. And there was a narrow group of interests that were wanting a consolation prize following the marriage equality issue. And that's simply what it was. And that needs to be said.
Well, no. I mean, unfortunately, that's less than a week away. As Leader Pilas said, this needs to be done in a thoughtful fashion. Now, we think we have a solution here, but as has been suggested, it will take some time. So, it's too bad. It's too bad this bill came about in the manner that it was brought about. It was not a bill which, as Leader Pilas mentioned, was needed. We can't control the timing on that. The last thing we should do now is rush through for a solution just because we have this event here. It's very unfortunate as to the timing, but that timing was brought on by the proponents of this bill.
Yes.
I second that. Yes, ma'am. Well, sometimes I think that the Republican leadership forgets we're around here. We offered all these amendments, both on the House side and the Senate side, and they were rejected, I think, completely on a party line basis. In which, they should have listened to us. But we're more than willing to listen to them at this point in time.
Here's what's changed the public. The public has been educated, and the public is angry. And in a representative government, I suspect that some of those representatives are having second thoughts about the decision they made. And in fairness, some of them were probably led into this not being entirely sure of maybe what they were supporting, or they were being told it was one thing and it was maybe another. I promise you that none of them are happy about the explanations that they're being forced to give.
Yeah, I'll answer that. Everybody at this point in time needs to set aside the arrogance and the politics and listen to the people. And the people are saying, this is not Indiana. This bill does not reflect the people of the great state of Indiana. We are a welcoming, tolerant citizens, and they do not want a bill which says to the world otherwise. I think I can say that there's a scenario under which that definitely could occur. It knocks aside all the current ordinances which are out there, which protect people on the basis of sexual orientation. And again, I'll say it. When they were asked, does this bill allow discrimination or not, they say, we don't know.
And again, one last thing on that, and at this point bears repeating. The proponents, those that were pushing for this bill behind the scenes gave the answer to that question. They believe it allows discrimination and are right now putting out appeals to raise money on that basis.
Yes. I disagree with that completely. We are, as I've said previously, Indiana is a state which welcomes everyone, and we certainly don't discriminate against somebody on the basis of religion. My opinion on that is that people in Indiana pretty much feel like you're entitled to your own beliefs. Whether or not some beliefs should be translated into public policy is a different question. But we respect people of all religions, so that's absolutely wrong.
And one other point, and thanks, Tim. And one other point, people of faith are objecting to this bill.
Right.
People of faith are angry, along with everybody else, because they don't believe these things in their hearts, and they don't believe that that's the message of their faith, that you ought to be treating people fundamentally differently.
You know, many people feel you may have certain beliefs about what's right and what's wrong morally. But the one thing you don't do is discriminate against people. Discrimination is always felt, I think, by and large, by the good people of the state of Indiana to be wrong.
Abdul, I think I answered that the other day.
Are there any other serious questions? If not,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.